All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May Farm Bill series for the North Carolina Food System Advocacy Coalition. I'm Brett. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the administrator with the coalition. And today we have Jan Jones with Second Harvest Food Bank and Jessica Burroughs with Moms Rising to give us kind of a nutrition update. So I'm going to pass it over to them.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you were with us on the first one, some of this will be just a review, but again, just wanted to update with some of the changes that have happened. So if you'll go to the second slide. And when we look at this is just the farm.
Oh, and hold on, Jan, will you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Well, I thought Brett had done that for us. And
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I apologize. This is my long COVID deciding to act up right now, which it likes to do. So when I get on a call, I apologize. I'm Jan Jones, and I'm the Director of Public Policy at Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina in Winston-Salem. And just glad you're with us today. So, and again, this is just the Farm Bill visualized. First, you're seeing on the left just what the budget portion of it looks like, just to show and for you to see that the nutrition portion does make up, over 75% of the funding in the Farm Bill, with some of the waivers and things that were put in place during COVID. It did go up over 80%. But as I say, normally it has grown to about 75%. On the right is just the President Obama, when he was in office, referred to the Farm Bill as it was a Swiss, just like a Swiss Army knife. So you can see all the different components of the Farm Bill, and we'll go over what those are on the next slide.
Okay, and hello, everyone. I'm Jessica, and sorry I missed you introducing us, Brett. I'm with Moms Rising. I live in Durham, and I am the Senior Campaign Director for North Carolina for Hunger and Food Insecurity. And Jan and I have been working so closely together that we both decided to wear pink without even communicating verbally. It was just through mind. So anyway, so we color coordinated to present to you. So this presentation is like a 201. So in our 101 presentation that we gave last year, we shared that the Farm Bill is reauthorized every 5 years. The last one was reauthorized in 2018. So this next one is due to be reauthorized in September of this year. As you can see, there are 12 titles, and all of the nutrition titles, all of the nutrition programs are in title number 4. So we will talk about all of those today. Just wanted you to keep in mind that they exclude child nutrition programs. That's in a separate child nutrition reauthorization bill, which includes WIC, school lunch, school breakfast, summer feeding, and those kinds of things. So we will not be talking about that. Okay, next slide. You are muted.
See, I knew that would happen too. And what happened in the last Farm Bill? The SNAP was protected and strengthened. And one of the things that was in that Farm Bill that had not been included before was that the Thrifty Food Plan, which is what the benefits are based on, should be reevaluated every 5 years. They had not been reevaluated since 1978. So they were reevaluated in 2021. And if you don't look at what the allotments looked like during COVID with the waivers in place, it increased by 21%, which works out to be about $1.19 additional per day. And that began October 31st of 2021. It reauthorized the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which is TFAP. And it's what the food banks, it is one of the major programs that we distribute. And then also CS, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which provides a monthly box to seniors 60 and older and individuals that are disabled. And then it also strengthened the FIFDIPR, the Food Distribution Program on Indian reservations, by letting the tribes become more involved in the food that was purchased by the tribal organizations. Next slide. Oops.
Okay, so here's what else happened in the last Farm Bill. The bill broadened the definition of SNAP retail food stores to include online entities, which was very helpful, given that then the pandemic followed and the pandemic greatly expanded online purchasing through SNAP. The last Farm Bill required nationwide implementation of online acceptance of SNAP benefits. And this is technical, but the food insecurity nutrition incentives were renamed to the GUSNIP, Gus Schumacher Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program, which did provide funding for North Carolina and other states to do things such as double bucks. Next slide.
When we look at the first portion of the nutrition, the largest portion of it, which is the SNAP program, SNAP is the nation's first line of defense against hunger, and it's helping put food on the table for over 41 million low-income participants each month. And this says, as of September 21st, I did check, that number fluctuates, it can fluctuate some, but on average, it is around the 41 million low-income participants each month. Next slide.
Okay, so in the 101 session, we talked about marker bills, and marker bills are really like a test of support. And think of these as like drafts of bills that will go into the final Farm Bill. So a number of marker bills have already been introduced that relate to SNAP and to the food assistance and food charity programs. So now we're going to go through those that have been introduced that we would very much like to see these in the final Farm Bill.
So the first one that we're going to talk about is Closing the Meal Gap Act of 2023. This was reintroduced recently by, and one of our champions for this bill, one of our strong champions for this bill is Representative Alma Adams. And you can see that the House, the number for each, the House as well as the Senate bill is listed if you want to do some research on those bills. But what this would do is, I've just mentioned earlier about the Thrifty Food Plan is what the benefit allotments are based on for SNAP households. But we would like to see it changed to the low cost food plan, which actually is a more adequate plan. The Thrifty Food Plan is the lowest of the benefit plans with the least amount provided per meal. So we would like to see it go up to the more adequate low cost food plan and boost SNAP benefits for families with children and seniors who are having to choose, but make those hard choices between food and shelter or food and medicine. So boost the allotments for them. We also, right now, presently, the minimum benefit that a household could receive for SNAP each month is $23. With the with the benefit allotment being increased back in October of 21, it went from $20 a month to $23, but we would like to see that increase to more each month. And improve equitable access for our U.S. territories. Right now, 3 of the territories only receive a block grant called Nutritional Assistance Program, which is a limited amount of money provided annually to those territories to operate their nutrition assistance program. That program does not respond like SNAP does. Like even during the pandemic, when SNAP was able to expand as more people were eligible, and then contracts when people go off. Those programs can't do that. They are set amount of money. And the territories that do not receive SNAP benefits are Puerto Rico, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And our two territories that do receive them are Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Next slide.
Okay, so really that Closing the Meal Gap Act that Jan just talked about is incredibly comprehensive, and it would be just visionary if it was part of the Farm Bill. So now we're going to go through a few of the other marker bills that are less comprehensive, but just as important and targeted. So one is the Improving Access to Nutrition Act of 2023. SNAP has an arbitrary 3-month time limit for participation, and it has to do with work requirements. That time limit was waived during the pandemic. It is now coming back. And so this lifts SNAP's arbitrary 3-month time limit so that all eligible people have access to nutrition assistance and stay healthy. Next slide.
The Enhanced Access to SNAP or EATS Act of 2023. This was just reintroduced in the Senate by Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York. And what this would do is help eliminate the barriers that college students face when they apply for SNAP. Prior to the pandemics, there were waivers put in place during the pandemic that made it easier for college students to receive SNAP benefits. But to receive SNAP, a college student has to be enrolled full-time and working on average 20 hours a week. That is just, that's asking a lot of a college student to be in classes full-time and then also work the 20 hours a week. So we would like to see those barriers eliminated for them. We also know that for like community college students, that 40% leave school because of food insecurity, that they're not able to feed themselves while they're in school. So we want to make sure that those college students are able to stay in school, get their degree, get that diploma, and move on out into the workforce. Let's help make it easier by helping them have better access to SNAP benefits. Next slide.
So the theme of all of these marker bills is really about expanding access to SNAP and removing barriers for different populations. Did you all know that immigrants who are once they are legally here, get through all of their paperwork, they are banned from participating in SNAP for 5 years? So this was surprising for me when I found out about that. So this marker bill, Lift the Bar Act, championed by Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington State, seeks to restore access to public programs for lawfully present immigrants by removing the 5-year waiting period and other restrictions to SNAP eligibility. And in addition to SNAP, this proposal would remove that waiting period in Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and for TANF. Next slide.
The equitable SNAP access for those making new starts. This was just introduced in the Senate and in the House. And this one actually has bipartisan support. It's Senator Cory Booker, who introduced in the Senate, and Representative Cohen from Tennessee introduced in the House. And right now there is a lifetime ban for certain drug felons, whatever their class of drug felony is, that they are banned for life for receiving SNAP. no other, no other. You can commit murder, you can do anything, you can embezzle and still receive SNAP benefits. However, it's just this one, so we would like, we want that ban to be lifted, but also allow individuals to apply for SNAP 30 days prior to their release from incarceration, so that this also, when they are released, makes it easier, helps them transition out after their release. So we see that both of these are very important to help these households remove this barrier for them. But also, even when you look at the SNAP benefits, that drug felons being banned, the other members in their household can still receive SNAP benefits. It's just that one person that is not able to qualify for the benefits. But if that that doesn't mean that person still isn't going to be eating in that household. It just means there's not any SNAP benefits for that person. So this just puts another strain on a household budget, food budget, if that by having this ban in place.
And before we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to share that Jan and I, we participated in a food distribution event in Greensboro over the winter, where cars had lined up overnight, for hours to wait for food. And Jan and I met a woman, Gail, who's now part of our North Carolina Fellows Program, who falls into this category. So just to put a picture to the statistic, I mean, she had a drug felony like over 20 years ago in Michigan. And because of that, she is banned from receiving SNAP in North Carolina. So there she was at the food bank, spending the night in line, desperate for food. Okay, thank you. So another marker bill is the SNAP Plus Act, and this would simply end the prohibition on the use of SNAP to purchase hot prepared foods from food retailers.
And SNAP, as I say, is the major federal nutrition program that is in the Farm Bill, included in the Farm Bill. There are several other nutrition programs that are included. I just want to touch base on a couple of the other programs that are in there. The Emergency Food Assistance Program, TFAP, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, or CSFP, the Food Distribution Program on Indian reservations, or FIFDIPR, and then also included in the Farm Bill are policies about regarding donating food to programs. Next slide. TFAP is the cornerstone of the Charitable Food Assistance Network. And what we're asking for, we need to increase the funding to help people facing hunger and support the U.S. agricultural economy. TFAP was established so that it helps support farmers if that buys their overproduction that they have of food. So if you have a bumper crop of salmon one year, TFAP program, the USDA will buy the excess of that product to help stabilize the price of the salmon. But we will see that go out through the Emergency Food Assistance Program. It really is some of the most nutritious product that we distribute through the program. It's dairy, it's eggs, it can be produce, vegetables and fruit, and it comes in forms, it's frozen, it can be canned, and I say it's just some of the most nutritious product that we provide. So we want to increase the funding, but we also want to bolster the Farm to Food Bank program. And that is where food banks programs are able to purchase directly from farmers. And there is right now there's a state match required for that program, and we would like to see that match removed. And so that the funding for Farm to Food Bank just goes straight to the farms. Next slide. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program, I've already, as I say, mentioned that. It's a program that provides food boxes to older adults 60 and above with low incomes. And this is, as I say, is a program that delivers the food boxes to the adults' homes. We would like to see the funding for that program increased. Right now, I think it's only 670,000 that are in the caseload, and that is nationwide. So we would like to see funding for that increased. Next slide. The food distribution program on Indian reservations, or Fifth Dipper, it provides USDA foods to income eligible households living on Indian reservations and to Native American households residing in designated areas near reservations or in Oklahoma. The Eastern Band of the Cherokee do distribute Fifth Dipper in North Carolina. But we want to allow the households, we are asking for the households that receive Fifth Dipper to also be able to receive both SNAP and Fifth Dipper in the same month. Presently, the household has to choose. Do they want to receive SNAP or do they want to receive Fifth Dipper? They can't access both. This is the only program that has that restriction on it. If you receive TFAP, you can receive SNAP. And as a matter of fact, receiving SNAP is an automatic qualifier for a household who receive TFAP. So we want to see this restriction on our indigenous peoples, on the tribes removed, and allow them to be able to participate in both programs in a month. Next slide. And as we in the Farm Bill, we want to see it easier for people to make food donations, such as our farmers being able to donate. We also know that the sell by date when people are donating food can be very confusing as to, is it still good? Is it not good? So again, just make it easier, remove those, and just standardize the guidelines for people to be able to donate. And a lot of people also don't realize that the Good Samaritan Act does protect people who are donating food. So it's so that you don't have to worry about any legal repercussions if you donate, because the Good Samaritan Act does protect people who are donating food. But that's also part, when food is donated to the food bank, that is also one of the things that we do as food bankers before the food goes out to the household, is that every bit of the food that comes into us is touched to make sure that the can is still perfectly safe, that it hasn't doesn't have cuts, punctures. Also, that the wrapping around, like when you think of spaghetti, you want to make sure that that box is intact. We don't send out anything that would pose a risk to a household. Next slide.
Okay, so we've just walked through the marker bills for SNAP that have been proposed. I wanted to, just before we close and open it up for questions, I wanted to zoom out a little bit and take a look at the broader landscape of what is happening now. So while we are busy advocating for this farm bill now, it's obvious to most of us that the cost of food has been rising, and it makes it difficult for families to put food on the table. And at the same time, many families who rely on SNAP saw their monthly benefits drop in February. This has been called the hunger cliff, when the SNAP emergency allotments ended. And so now even more families are having to choose between eating and paying rent or other essentials. And the drop in monthly benefits is, we're talking maybe with one person, it was a drop from like $900 to $300 a month for their family. So it's a huge drop. And so that is one part of the landscape that's happening now. Another piece, which many of you are aware of, is this debt crisis. So on top of what's currently happening, some extremist members of the House of Representatives are trying to pass harsh cuts and barriers to access to nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC in the face of a potential national budget default. These lawmakers are trying to hold hungry families hostage while forcing the US economy and government into default. And a default of any kind, most of you know this, would almost definitely catapult our already struggling economy into a recession, leading to layoffs, increased poverty, and health risks. And the irresponsible and harmful budget cuts they're suggesting in return for avoiding default will mean more families and children will go hungry. And specifically, 41.5 million people could lose SNAP or food stamps. And just wanted to share that you probably have heard these extremist House members from one particular party talking about work requirements, increasing work requirements for SNAP. This is misnamed. Most of the people that are on SNAP already do work, and there already are work requirements in place. Instead, these are harmful barriers to access and time limits to kick people off the rolls, which is really for these extremist Republicans is the goal, to kick people off of SNAP. So we can't let this go through. And now I'll turn it over to Jan to talk about what we can do. Oh, and also, I'm just going to put in the chat, the debt crisis, it's very complicated. MomsRising created an explainer video in like 2 minutes about what's going on with the debt crisis. So I will share it in the chat in case you're interested.
And just to add another aspect to that, when you talk about the debt ceiling, is that if this is not resolved before June 1, we don't know, we're exactly sure what date that it would be in June, but that SNAP benefits might not go out, would not go out if this isn't resolved. Social Security benefits would not go out. Medicaid payments would not be made. So this is as I say, it's very serious. We need Congress to act on this. But as Jessica says, it needs not to have these harmful policies included in it. So I'll step back and say now what and talk about what you can do. Get involved with the North Carolina Food System Advocacy Coalitions. We have monthly meetings that are on the second Friday of the month from 1 to 2 p.m. It's open to the public. We certainly hope you will join us if you're not already participating. Join our listserv. I think that Brett has already mentioned that in the chat, just to make sure you're on our mailing list. And it says we are a large group. I forget exactly how many we are now. Brett could probably tell us that have joined. But we definitely, as I say, we have these informational meetings. We meet monthly and have opportunities for our members to meet with their members of Congress. And we help prep for those. And then a great way for you to have your voice heard by your elected official. Become a member. You can join us. There's no membership fee. You just fill out a form and join, and either as an individual or as an organization. But also, as I just mentioned about meeting with your elected officials, let us know what district you're in. The coalition is organizing meetings right now. At least once a month, we're having a meeting with a member of Congress, more often if we can, to talk about our priorities for the Farm Bill and the importance of all the programs that are in the Farm Bill. I'll also say the coalition is also doing these sessions monthly. I know a lot of you have joined before. Brett, they're recorded. I'm not sure how I don't have that address as to how they can access that, but if you could drop that in the chat, if you want to go back and review some of the previous sessions. We've talked about, say, the Local Food Procurement Act. I know we've also talked about credit. farm credits. And so again, there are great topics that you can, where you can learn more about the Farm Bill. Next slide. So are there any questions about what we've covered, or Brett, were there any questions in the chat?
Yeah, Diane had a question about TFAP. Diane, do you want to voice that and then we can go from there?
Oh, sure. It was a question for Jan as she was speaking about TFAP, and I guess I was just trying to understand how TFAP and the food banks and specifically the Feeding the Carolinas and Cindy Stapleton's position at Feeding the Carolinas fit into that. Since I think when I spoke with her, I don't know, it was maybe a year or so ago, my sense was that she had, I think originally there was some FRAC funding that paid for her position, and wasn't exactly quite sure what was paying for her position now, but I was like, well, is that, I hadn't really thought about TFAP as a potential funding source for her position, but just was wondering how TFAP and Feeding the Carolinas and Cindy all fit together.
Okay, well, TFAP, as I say, is the federal nutrition program, and USDA presently does all of the purchasing for that program. Yes, Cindy is, I'm not sure what her funding is, and she is an employee of Feeding the Carolinas, and she is our produce, she procures the produce for food banks, and again, work with local growers for that, but again, she is purchasing for the entire, and it's for also not just North Carolina food banks, but South Carolina food banks, since it's for both states. So again, it's a little bit different. Again, the TFAP is purchased through USDA, with some of the changes that we're seeing under this administration that we welcome, or much needed changes, is that they are working more with local growers. There are a couple of grants they have also out that are allowing the states to actually do more purchasing with federal funds of local produce, working with small and minority owned farmers, minority owned farms, so that we are, again, TFAP in many ways, when you're having to buy at a national level, you're really working with the big producers, and we want to support more of those locals. So again, changes are coming with that, Diane, but again, what Cindy does is very separate from TFAP.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then Diane had also asked in the chat, and Jalen pointed out, this group mostly does federal work, but Jan and Jessica, do you know of any groups doing statewide advocacy around this?
I'm not familiar presently with anyone, and also Erlene or Rosa, Jessica.
Well, I would say the North Carolina Alliance for Health is a great resource, but they're not addressing federal things. Their big focus is school meals for all in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, Diane, I mean, there's been, the CFSA, the Food Hub Association, School Meals for All. There's a bunch of budget requests in this year. Senate put out their budget. Some of that stuff is in there in much lower amounts than was asked. And now the House and the Senate are moving into conference committees. So we should have a state budget in the next 2 weeks, but now's the time to advocate to the House and the Senate to, tell folks what you want in that state budget conference. So that's kind of the update right now. And the fund, there's also an NC Farm Act, which has some decent things in it, and also some kind of bad things in it. So yeah.
Thank you. I think, like many of you, I sit in a variety of circles of folks interested in this nutrition, food access space, and it's gosh, I keep trying to find the one advocacy organization that really does that work for North Carolina. And of course, as I said, I know there are many important players that would have to be involved with that. So thank you for sharing that.
And I think, Diane, we did try to start one several years ago after the anti-hunger policy conference. And it, I see Earlene shaking her head,
Mm,
and it did not, it just kind of fizzled out. So, because, and it really was more of a state, as I say, state-focused group with that. So,
Yeah.
there could be some interest in starting again. But I'm with Jessica that Alliance for Health and as Jalen said, Carolina Farm Stewardship. I think all of us do some work here, but it's not quite as organized on this.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, so I have a question that I'd like to ask Rosa, because Rosa put in the chat. Rosa, could you share a little bit more about what meeting you just came from and any insights you gleaned?
Sure, I was so torn because they were like 15 minutes late to get started for technology issues. And so I was like, I gotta get up because I wanted to be on this one. So I'm so thankful that you shared that link. So I was part of a group of folks. Most of them were faith leaders that Bread for the World got together with Representative Jennifer Gonzalez Colon to talk about the NAP to SNAP transition. And we didn't get too far along. I think this is one of some other meetings they're going to have. But I do want to share that one of the things that I found really, really, really disappointing coming from her was that they're wanting to do the NAP to SNAP, but they're trying to sneak in some increased funding in the way of grants for coffee, for research for coffee, plantains, bananas, and cacao. And she even said 90% of the food that is that in Puerto Rico is imported. So what she said was that she wanted people to contact their representatives and their senators because this would mean an increase. She said, when we get the SNAP benefits, people in Puerto Rico are going to be buying, they're not going to be buying chicken from China. They're going to be buying chicken from some state in the US. They're going to be buying milk from Wisconsin. They're going to be buying beef from, and I found that to be really, really, I just feel like it's kind of pimping out the people, you know, get this passed so that you can get more money from people if you put more money into their hands because they're going to be buying your products. And there wasn't enough time because then it was ended to talk about what about increasing production in Puerto Rico. I mean, if you have 90% food that's being imported, that's a huge market. Whoever produces. So, I mean, it was heartbreaking to hear that. But there was I think this is a good organization. It was called Nutriendo Puerto Rico, Nourishing Puerto Rico. It's pretty new. So I'm going to reach out to those folks and I'm going to see if I can get more information from that perspective because they really seem to have the little bit that they were able to speak. They really seem to have more perspective of sustainable and making sure that nutritious food is available, not just that the farmers in Wisconsin are going to get more money for their milk because they're going to sell to Puerto Rico, even though I support farmers in Wisconsin. But I mean, I just don't, anyways, that's what I can share.
Thank you. And I just saw that Diane mentioned, asked what NAP was. That was one of the things mentioned in Closing the Meal Gap, that NAP is a block grant that goes to 3 US territories, and it's the Nutritional Assistance Program. They have that instead of SNAP. So that's one of the things that we're asking is that our 3 territories be able to receive SNAP benefits instead of the block grant. Block grants don't operate as the nutrition like SNAP does, where they can expand during downtime, like the Great Recession that we had, and then contract when times get better. So that's just bringing equity across all of the US and its territories.
And I'll add, and correct me if I'm wrong, but until 1981, Puerto Rico was receiving SNAP, but 1981's budget reconciliation defunded SNAP, and it was basically a way to save money. And now, yeah, I mean, like Jan said, when COVID hit, Puerto Rico essentially had to make it, you had to be like the poorest of the poor to receive SNAP or to receive benefits because it's not able to expand. So it hasn't always been like this. And so that means it doesn't have to continue to be like it, which, yeah.
Which, by the way, they say there was a 25% savings by going to NAP. So that means people got cut.
Probably the benefit amounts also. And remember, with block grants, the state or the territory can decide how to spend the money. It doesn't have to actually go for food. So, but also, Jessica, I can't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning, that the Farm Bill does expire September 30th of this year. And a couple of weeks ago, when I was in DC for the Anti-Hunger Policy Conference and met with several members of Congress, their staff, it was mentioned that they didn't expect the Farm Bill to be passed by September 30th and hoped that something would be in place by December 31st. So I think the debt ceiling is kind of interfering with the progress on this.
Any other nutrition program questions or Farm Bill questions? Yeah, I know there's a lot right now kind of in the air with the debt ceiling and all that.
What did they said? They thought it was going to pass by September 30th or not pass.
Yeah, she mentioned that there was expectation, and she's a Republican. She doesn't really have any vote in there, but she's in the party, and she said that there was expectation that it would pass by September.
That's funny because it was Representative McHenry's ag person that told us he did not think it would pass. So and he is definitely Republican too. Well, Brett, you want to close us out? It doesn't seem we have any more questions.
Before you close out, hi, this is Michelle. Hi, Jan
Oh, hey,
and
Michelle.
Jessica. Jan, you mentioned something about work requirements, and I know that there were already work requirements in the SNAP program. What are they asking? What is the difference between what was and what they want it to be?
Jessica, you want to take that one?
Sure, and someone else can help me out too, because I'm not sure what age increase they landed on, but one of what they're asking for as part of the debt crisis negotiation is to increase the age at which you need to work and be steadily working for 3 months before you lose your requirements. So if someone knows the age, I believe they increased it to 55, or they're asking to 55 from like 45. What's interesting is they also wanted to, so the time limit for work requirements, it was initially put in place for families of children over, see, now I'm messing it up because I don't know the exact numbers, but over a certain age. So like if you have, and it's something like this, like if you had a child like age 12 and under, then you did not have to submit to those work requirements because you were taking care of your children. But initially, these extremist Republicans wanted to reduce that age to 5 and say, if you have a child over the age of 5, you need to be working for 3 months or you'll lose the benefits. But there was such an uproar that was taken out, which I think that is interesting. So they are listening.
Well, that is interesting. Thank you.
As we all know, oh, sorry. as we all know, a child, a 6 or 7-year-old cannot be at home by themselves, raising themselves. So,
And the work requirement is that you are working at least 20 hours a week, a minimum rather of 20 hours a week. But it doesn't take into account that we have people who cannot get, I mean, you can verify this by your check stubs, a statement from your employer, but not everyone gets check stubs and not everyone can get a statement from their employer that they are working. So it's hard for some people to be able to show that they are working that amount of time. So this is a very onerous bill. And Jessica, I think they were raising it to from 49 to 54. So that those were the ones that would have to register for work or have a job. And again, work requirements, ABOD does not show it. Studies have shown it does not improve it doesn't improve their income situation. They're not able to find a job. Erlene, you've got your hand raised, sorry.
Yes, I wanted to share with you two things. I attended the listening session, the Farm Bill listening session with Senator Tillis in Smithfield a couple weeks ago. He had invited as his guest Senator John Bozeman, who is the ranking majority chair of the Appropriations Committee. So I got a chance to speak with him. That was an interesting event, first of all. But Mr. Bozeman he seemed very concerned, and basically I kind of believe him because he has served on the Hunger Caucus and some other things. But he said that people wanted to cut those benefits and we can't allow them to cut benefits like they want them to. And that's what he said. So out of his mouth, I'm repeating it. So I don't know what's going to happen. And he did say that they were going to try to have a farm bill passed this year. And now that was 2 weeks ago, before the debt ceiling has really focused. And I've heard a couple of other people said that they were hoping to have a farm bill. When we met with Representative Davis's office, he said that he was working with, I forgot the guy down, I shouldn't say that, our representative down in the Wilmington area, so that they too were working on it. So nobody, it's supposed to be a nonpartisan group. They really don't want it, but nobody wants to give up anything. So that's that. But also with the debt ceiling, I just want to share with you all, the last time we had this issue, there were so many people demanding food or needing food because their wages had been lost. And I remind you, this wasn't necessarily people that traditionally come for food assistance. These were government workers. These were people who had the air traffic controllers, the people at Butner. We did a number of distributions there. So if we do fall with the debt ceiling, many people or organizations who distribute food will have more people there looking for food. So just to share with you.
Arlene, sorry, buddy. I'm glad you're at that event. I heard that event was interesting, and I'm glad to hear Bozeman saying that. I mean, this is what happened in 2018 with the Farm Bill. I mean, we saw similar folks in the House trying to do similar things with shutting down the bill to cut SNAP. But in 2018, the Senate made their version of the Farm Bill first, and so in the 2012 Farm Bill was turned into the 2014 Farm Bill. That's when we had the House draft their version first, and the same thing happened. So we're kind of set up in a situation this year where the House is going to draft their version. It's going to be extreme. They're going to hijack SNAP with these extremist Republicans, and then the Senate is going to try to balance it out. But with the timing, we probably will have to see an extension because of the House going first. But it's good to hear that there's a bit of reason left in the Senate.
Rose, I saw you had a question too.
Yeah, I wanted to ask on the work first or the work requirement. back in, this is a long time ago, 1996, Arlene, you remember this. You do, when there were 60 counties that were excluded from those requirements. What has happened to that? And who, I mean, how would that still be impacted? Are they still included? I don't even know, but I was part of that, kind of to make sure that the poorest counties, and in North Carolina, that was 60 counties were excluded from the work requirement.
Remember, Erlene helped me on this. Was it 2015 or 2017 when North Carolina passed a law saying that DHHS could no longer apply for ABOD waivers? So now all counties are having to go by ABOD. The only reason we didn't have the 3-month time limit during COVID was because it was a federal waiver. That's the only thing that kept that from being in place, was that the federal. So, but part of the negotiations they're talking about is it does involve exactly what you mentioned, Rosa, but that's getting in many ways way into weeds. Just know that they are trying to be as onerous and as strict as they can with these work requirements. But again, that's one of the things when we were part of a statewide group that we talked about addressing, was having that that law changed so that North Carolina could apply for ABOD waivers in economic downturn times. But right now, as the laws read, North Carolina cannot apply for ABOD waivers.
That sounds good. You all expect me to remember that? No, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it is a North Carolina law.
Yeah,
And
that's
it came out of, I think, wasn't it Representative Hayes, Erlene, from down around Asheville?
real. Yeah.
And Diane just asked if there's state action around. I mean, my understanding is SNAP is federally funded, so there really isn't anything the state can do, but Jan and Jessica and other folks, as their state programs to supplement.
Oh, state programs to supplement. I don't know about that, but I know that there are options that states can take, that are part of the SNAP's regulations that states can opt into and opt out of. And right now, for the life of me, I cannot think of. I used to know that, but right now I can't think of one of the opt-ins and opt-outs. Can you, Erlene?
No, the
Okay, good.
Justice Center has done a lot of work in this area, so they may be a resource.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I work at the Department of Health and Human Services. The SNAP agency, FNS, is now in the division I work in, right? Cynthia Irvin, who is the head of FNS, is an RD, right? Worked in school, in school meals and school summer meals. And so, I'm not one person can't make that kind of change, but, I do think if there were good arguments that were presented to our FNS agency here in North Carolina, where they could make some choices with good evidence and good rationale behind it, that would help. But it could help. So,
Well, at least we know there's somebody there who would listen.
Yes.
As an advocate, and Cynthia, so.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the thing is, I guess I would just say, and I know that thank you for explaining that this group was more focused on the federal stuff. Obviously, I care about both, but, I also, as many have seen, the state nutrition action plan that says it's from the department, but is really from our Division of Child and Family Wellbeing, has, came out at the end of April, with very strong, metrics to try and, increase SNAP participation, Medicaid participation, blah, blah, blah. So to me, I would just say that, because the department is looking at nutrition security in our state, that, the time for others to be able to, put forth suggestions to the leaders in the department at this time would be there'd be some, potentially good synergy. Granted, they're going to work on what they want to work on and feel like they can work on, but at the same time, I just think hearing from a body of people who have the best interests of SNAP participants, both from the federal perspective, but also, state level would be.
And
lovely.
Diane, I will say that in other states, I was just on a webinar either earlier this week or last week, where there in other states, they do have statewide groups that work with their local SNAP or FNS agency to help get some of those such things as the shelter standard change, the heating allowance. Those are some kind of opt-in things that they can do that they have done. So that would be, I have asked internally here if North Carolina has one. And I know there's a NAC that they call it, nutritional assistance. I'm not sure what the C is, that people who are doing SNAP Ed participate in, but I don't know that it's particularly focused on getting policy, changed, that type of thing. There, as I say, there are things that states can opt into, and such as what is the maximum medical deduction you can take and getting it raised. So there are those things. So again, yes, at state level, we need to find some way to work towards that. But also, I saw your question about the summit in June. I did reach out to Connie Tran recently, and Connie said that summit is not going to happen, that the division, I think it's going to be more of a focus on senior nutrition. And she said she would keep me posted on when it was going to happen.
I just want to jump in real quick. Sorry, Brett. I know we gotta go,
Go ahead.
but Diane, I'm glad you brought up that report, because I saw that and I was wondering who the hell made that report at DHHS and who did they engage with? Because it didn't seem like any partners that I've talked with across the state were engaged with. It seemed like it was all internal, all from DHHS. And so, yeah, I think there needs to be an effort to give feedback on that. I don't think this coalition has the capacity, considering Farm Bill is raging, but to Jan's point, there needs to be some kind of concerted effort to give feedback there, because that seems like it was done in a black hole without any input.
Well, I
Yeah.
do know, and I know
Diana?
that Madhu, shared in the email that I know I shared in a number of listservs that, feedback could be provided to her, Madhu Villamiri. And I do know that they acknowledged that they worked with the Benefits Data Trust, with Karen, I can't say her last names, group, perhaps as the leads for writing that. So yes. So again, yes, Taylor. Yes.
All right, y'all, I'm gonna get us out of here because it is after 1, but I just put my email, the coalition email in the chat. So if you do wanna be one of those folks to meet with representatives, I agree, our voices are louder together. Please reach out. We send emails when we have those meetings. Huge thank you to Jan and Jessica, and also Erlene and Rosa and all the other experts on the call who got roped into presenting, even though they didn't know they were doing it. I hope everyone has a good day. Bye, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.